Hello, everybody. I hope you're all sitting there going, woo, woo, the boys' bad news. Bit of Eagles of death metal for you there. Anyway, that's as good as my singing voice gets. It's a bit like being on the terraces. If singing was about me just being on the terraces, I would fit in really, really well, unfortunately. Either that or Oasis songs. I'm very good at singing too, sadly enough. Anyway, this is Deborah Walker. I know, you were stunned there about my singing voice, weren't you, for a moment? And this is Food for Thought. And how are you all? I know there's a few people with me today. I say the chat box is growing again. Sovereignty, hello. Michael, hello. And you're awake. Fantastic. I didn't realise. I thought this was your middle of the night, Michael, to be honest. Anyway, lovely to have you with me. Who else is there? Alan, as always. Alan's busy posting stuff in the chat box. I think I say that every single week when I re-listen to the podcasts. But Alan's going mad as always, posting stacks and stacks of stuff. So thank you very much. And has posted some quite shocking stuff, which parental advice and son. In all honesty. So we've got Rich Fields with us today. Hello, come on, everybody get in the chat box and say hello to each other. Duck Dodgers, duck. Nice to see you. Is the Coat there? I was wondering if Coat was around. So there's McAllister. Nice to see you, McAllister. I don't know, have I seen you on here before? Anyway, fantastic. And, oh no, Mahatma Coat's not around. I'm shocked. Oh well. Anyway, maybe Mahatma Coat is around. I do quite like the coat. So, I've said hello to you all. And, get... Someone's having a coffee, are they? Is that what you're saying to me in the box? Anyway, I've got an interesting show for you, so I won't waste any more time faffing around. Interesting show for you today. I've got an interview that I recorded last week with Martin Derwent from the new Dawn project. Really, really interesting guy. Really interesting project. They're on Facebook, so go and join them and see what they're doing on Facebook. In the meantime, listen to this interview because he talks about permaculture, not only how placing it in the desert with the project that they're doing and helping people there, but also bringing it back to the UK. And that was what really interested me, the fact that it was jointly done, not just that it was overseas. So enjoy this interview. It's about 45 minutes long, and then I'll be with you for the second half. Right then. So I'm going to hand over to Nick, who's going to play it. I've got Martin Dewhurst on from the new Dawn project, which I thought would be really interesting for us to learn more about because it's a fantastic project mapped out to help spread education in schools and eliminate hunger in many areas across the globe through sustainable growing food kits, which are really fascinating. He needs more help in regards to finding sponsors to make this vision more of a reality and to build it even further. So today I welcome Martin.
Good morning, Debbie. Thank you.
Hello, Martin. So first of all, give us a little bit of background about yourself.
I'm 50 years old now. I've been working in this sector for the past decade, learning more than anything, very much out of my comfort zone. Prior to getting into this, I ran my own company in the design and graphics industry. It's quite a contrast to what I used to do.
Totally. So what led to you actually moving out of that area?
I had some life changes going on around 2000, and an early part of the new century, a friend of mine invited me to go on a humanitarian mission, and we travelled out to Western Sahara and Algeria, and it was a life-changing journey, and I've never looked back since. I think the inspiration for all the work I do now is based on my experiences in those early trips we made out to the desert.
So they obviously made a massive impact with you.
Yes, yeah, beyond my wildest imagination.
And it is often what people say, isn't it? When you are faced with things, it can just truly bring your own life and what's happening in your own life home to you.
Yes, it will provide a context. And I was looking at, in my previous life with my graphics company, I lived an affluent lifestyle, had all the things I ever wanted. But then I never really found happiness in the things themselves. They were just things. And I remember having the thought, there must be more to life than this. And it wasn't long before I actually found out there was a lot much more to life than just the things themselves and the having of things. And the real importance is how we live with each other.
That's just so true. So over the last 10 years, my understanding is that you've been focused on the issue of poverty and learning about how about its most potent antidotes is basically what I've taken from it. Yeah. So during this time, you feel that you've kind of developed the foundations of a globally sustainable solution to hunger and extreme poverty. Do you want to just explain that?
It sounds grand, and yet it's really practical, and it's inherent in every community that the solutions to poverty exist within the people in the community. The people in the problem are very much the solution to how to get out of. And what I've also seen is how partnerships between communities enable people to see their own solutions more clearly. So an example of that would be in the Sahara, where we're focusing our energy. The people there are very isolated from the outside world, but at the same time they're very focused on generating their own solutions. So rather than looking at the negative aspects of their situation, we're looking at all of the achievements they've created by working interdependently, and that's the key word in all this work. And then when I look over here into the UK and the situations we've got in our own communities, we do have poverty in this country, and it's nowhere near as severe as it is in the emerging world. So we can effectively share the bigger story with people in this country of how others are living and coping and surviving, and at the same time inspire them to tackle their own issues in this area. And equally, when you tell stories about what it's like on the sink estates to people living in the developing world, they're quite shocked at the levels of depravity or deprivation that people are living in this country. And it's almost, people in the developing world can't believe the situation we're living in here, and vice versa, we can't believe the situations other people are living in. So it's that contrast of each other's situations that then provides an objectivity that wouldn't otherwise exist. Does that make sense?
Yeah, that is fascinating, isn't it? The different perspectives. Whereas we always feel that, in where we are, that those people are suffering real poverty, and yet they consider, their perspective is that we've got a level of depravity. Absolutely fascinating.
Yes, and it's a different kind of depravity, and it's what I saw on my journeys around, that poverty has a different face wherever it is. So in some parts of Britain it may have a drug issue face, in other parts it might be a homelessness face, or in other parts of the world it might be access to clean water. The poverty always has a sort of unique characteristic to it in each area that does require local solutions, but also fresh eyes. And that's the beauty that we have, of objectivity. So we can go into other areas and see things, and then rather than telling people what to do, which is the old-fashioned way of doing it, it's more like to ask questions. And within asking those questions, we then get the answers coming out of the people in the problem. And that's far more potent than it is coming up with our ideas of what's right and wrong from the outside.
That's really nice, because often I feel that aid goes in and it's meant to be the solution, but it's our solution, and this is where it doesn't particularly help at times.
No, it totally disempowers. Because the more reliant people become upon the aid, the more vulnerable they become to their situation, because they become dependent on that aid without wanting to. And the other thing that I've seen as well on the travels is just how much charity doesn't work. The idea of charity is a disconnect for me. And it's the sort of the aid that was taken into the camps where we went was most inappropriate. So let's say, for example, somebody sent a set of roller skates as something that a child might enjoy in the developing world. Well, there's nowhere to roll those roller skates. So you've then got the embarrassment factor of bringing something that's inappropriate and not fit for purpose, and then the embarrassment of the other person not wanting to offend the person that brought it. So and then the other part of it as well is the idea of sending other people's cast-offs. It doesn't empower anyone, it doesn't do anything other than extend a problem that's already there. What's really interesting is looking at when you ask the the poignant questions of the people in the problem, what they want, it's totally different to what we expect it to be. And that was quite an eye-opener.
So let's just backtrack a little bit before I kind of pursue that side of it, because just explain the project that you're actually doing, because it's called the New Dawn Project. Just explain the objective of it for us.
It's essentially to enable self-sufficiency. And wherever it's used, the idea would be that it became redundant. So we go in for a short period of time, provide the resources for people to create their own food in this case, and then move on to the next situation, and then be no longer needed in that area. So
effectively you're empowering them. And
exactly.
Yeah.
And it's their project as well. That's the good thing. The whole idea of this comes from their ideas. It's what I could see was a lot of the world's big NGOs and charities already work in this area and have done so for the past 37 years. So with all that collective expertise, there was still a fundamental point missing, and that was the idea of empowerment and unity that the people wanted themselves. It become overlooked by this massive machine of aid. There's something like £34 million worth of aid going into the camps every year in terms of general aid. And also that aid that goes in fluctuates because there are other calls on the funding pots from other disasters around the world. So when those disasters occur, that aid will reduce, stocks will run out, and then the people are left vulnerable and going into malnutrition. Whereas when they're growing their own food, then they've got a buffer, they've got an ability to cope when other supplies diminish.
It's interesting, isn't it, around the aid side of things, because when you say 37 years they've been there and they've not made a difference, that's if I was running my own business after 37 months, if it wasn't making a difference, I would be reviewing it. Because you have to look at your own return on investment and what fundamentally is truly changing there. That 37 years is a huge amount of time.
It is, and it's a much bigger problem in terms of the global picture. There's somewhere between 15 and 22 million refugees worldwide who are at any time dependent on external aid coming in. Wow. And the thing to look at as well is, are any of the refugees any less intelligent than you and I? And I believe they're not. I believe they're just as intelligent as you and I. They're just resource poor and caught up in a situation that's not of their own making.
And some of these refugees, can you just give us a little bit of history around some of these people that you're helping? Because in Sahara, because some of them have been displaced, haven't they, due to, is it invasions or war?
Yes, there was a conflict in 1975 when Spain relinquished the territory of former Spanish Sahara. They pulled out, and rather than doing the deal with the indigenous Sahrawi people, they actually changed the tactics at the last minute and ceded the land to Morocco and Mauritania. So Morocco invaded the country from the north and Mauritania from the south and pushed the indigenous people out of their own country. So some people were left behind and they stayed to live under an oppressive regime. And then the rest of the people walked across the borders to neighbouring Algeria, and they've been there ever since. So subsequently you've then got a whole country that's been divided in two. And it's not a densely populated area at all, it's very sparsely populated because it's mostly desert. But at the same time you've got communities and families renting too. And following the ongoing conflict that lasted until 1991, when there was a peace settlement agreed with the United Nations, various walls have been built by Morocco to stop the Sahrawi refugees getting back into their own country. So it's been a very long-standing, protracted dispute, in which case the United Nations have been seeking a peaceful resolution and a democratic resolution with all the parties involved in it. And it's gone on for a long, long time. And all the time the people have been in the refugee camps, there's been this constant need for aid to keep them in this sort of temporary space of waiting to get back into their own country. It's interesting talking to the refugees. You can speak to any refugee in the camps. They don't want anything other than to get home. That's their sole purpose, is to get home to their homeland. So it's quite moving when you look at the generations of people that have been born in there and died in the camps in that period of time. And part of without getting into the deep politics of it, it seems that the main reason for other countries wanting their land is the high phosphates that exist in the territories. So it's also got fishing rights that are disputed off the coast. There's also probably a possibility of oil being there. But you've essentially got a nation in waiting that's awaiting its own self-determination.
So fundamentally, these are the people that you're working with. Yes,
and the idea of greening the desert and creating their own food really comes out of conversations I've had with women leaders there, who talked about this. I actually turned up with two pictures. One was a picture of Jordan on year one, where a lady called Nadia stood in this picture, and it was empty desert. And on 1 year later, she stood in this exactly the same spot, and it's like a jungle, all completely green. And they used a process called permaculture out in Jordan. And I knew from what I'd seen by meeting the experts that do this process of permaculture, that it was applicable to the Sahara as well. And it countered the problem that they had of growing their own food in the desert. So I showed them these pictures, and then we talked about World War II and how we had Take a Victory campaign here in the UK, where everyone worked together to double our food production. And they absolutely saw it. You can see their eyes light up with, this is what we want. We want nutrition for our children. We want solidarity with each other and unity. And this will very much bring us together. And they've assured us that every family will get involved in this project. So, it's 170,000 people will be involved in this.
Wow.
So if you can imagine Leap for Victory only in the desert, then that's the picture.
That's a massive commitment to be making to these people, to be honest, and for them, considering that actually they want to go home as well. So
yes.
They're committing themselves fundamentally then to actually staying there, aren't they?
Well, the vegetable crops that they're growing are seasonal. So even if they're only there for a year, they'll get a season out of it. But the knowledge they get in terms of learning how to cultivate the desert as families is portable. And then that's the other part of the project. This resourcing the people and giving them the seeds to start this is literally the beginning of a much longer journey. And the permaculture story that will evolve from this will involve the creation of permaculture food forests. These are large, sustainable forests that will probably last a couple of thousand years or more. And it consists basically of an outer ring of hardy pioneer palm trees, and then progressively smaller fruit trees, figs, guavas, pomegranates, etc. And each layer provides shelter for the next. So essentially, what the refugees will create in their own right is large green footprints in the desert, oases that they can visit. And there is a large strip of land between Algeria and Western Sahara, which is called the Liberated Territories. And it's quite likely that they would choose to grow these large food forests in that area. But when it comes to the delivery of these larger projects, then that's a partnership with the Permaculture Research Institute, who are the absolute world experts in this field. So our New Dawn project is just like an ignition switch, or it's a tiny part in a much bigger program.
But you're making that sound small there as an ignition switch, but often that's how the rocket takes off, isn't it? Let's face it.
Yeah, and I think that's important as well, that we keep this idea of smallness in it. I read a book a number of years ago called Small is Beautiful by Schumacher. And it resonates throughout the whole project. Anyone I've met that works in the developed sustainable development field will refer back to that book. And the idea of small is the way forward. So this is a very small project. And the way we're keeping it small in this country is to enable children to sponsor these boxes using pennies. So we spent a year researching this in a school, and we noticed that all around the playground the kids were just throwing coppers on the ground. They had no value to them at all. And we went away and did our sums and found out that there was £580 million of copper lying around in loose change in the UK. So that's a hell of a lot of money that could be doing a lot of good. So what we're attaching is this idea of turning coppers into greens, something really simple, so that children can go away and collect 100 pennies as an example. And then collaboratively as a whole school they buy one box, which is sufficient to get one family on feet and growing their own food.
And in regards to these boxes, just explain these boxes, these kits that you're talking about.
Yeah, so there was a project run by UNICEF in the camps a number of years ago called Family Garden Project, and it was run by a guy called Professor William Van Cotton. And he worked extensively with the refugees to help them grow their own food. So he's consulted on it, and we've also had a horticulturalist here in the UK called Dr. Alan Ray, and he's helped to resource the tools and equipment. And essentially what we've got is a big box that is a two-man lift, and inside it's jam-packed with everything from the massive variety of seeds, all kinds of tools, fertilisers, insect netting, instructions, everything that needs to actually get going and towards growing their own allotment. And the idea being really that each family can grow their own garden, as it were, in the shelter of their mud brick houses, and just turn over a little piece of the desert into a food-producing garden. And the idea of this isn't to sort of take over all the aid that's coming in, because that's essential. It's to supplement their diet and provide the nutrition that they're not getting, and also to sow the seeds of a greater story called permaculture.
So basically what you're creating is that, well, you're empowering them to move away from that aid in the long term, which is, in my eyes, nutritionally deficient, because often it's the food that's given to them is what's left over, what is able to be bought in bulk, and fundamentally that's truly not what's needed for their culture, to aid their personal health in their culture.
Very much so. Malnutrition is a big issue, even with the aid that comes in, because it either comes in tins or sacks. There's not the amount of fresh, locally grown food available there because of the nature of the ground. And that's one of the interesting things about the bigger potential for this as a program worldwide, is that permaculture will turn the sand back into soil. It takes a process of about 3 to 5 years. And what was arid, salted sand becomes fertile brown soil with all kinds of nutrients in it and microorganisms, and even fungus growing in it, which is unheard of in that kind of baking hot temperature.
Yeah.
So we're actually creating humidity.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
That's just amazing. Absolutely amazing.
It's mind-blowing what can be done, but also the evidence is there in terms of there are projects all around the world run by Permaculture Research Institute that are proving this in action. They tend to be off the radar. It's not mainstream news. They just get on in the background and make things happen. Very practical. And what I also noticed in the camps was the camps are largely run by women who also make things happen in the background unnoticed. So I'm looking at the harnessing of available technology and knowledge and available impetus and power from the women. So I'm very keen to hook up women's groups in this country with women's groups in that country, because there's a very strong peer-to-peer connection there of empathy between one party and the other.
Yeah. And
it's not that men don't understand, it's just that often things have to be seen to be believed. The women will make it happen, and the only guys will say, "Oh, that works."
I could see the chat box going mad.
Yes, absolutely.
I'll probably end up with a gender discussion now.
Yes.
But I love the fact that you're removing the dependence And I'm wondering how you're then bringing that information kind of back and integrating it with ourselves in the UK far more. Because, the Penny Project is nice, but how are you kind of bringing the knowledge back of permaculture and what's happening over there to ourselves? Because, like you said, there are people in poverty here, and, we do have the same issues with kind of food security. People who are becoming more and more dependent in this country on not so much aid, but social security payments.
Yeah.
And, how long will that go on for? I really don't know, to be honest, in the current climate. So how are you bringing that information back and, working with the people in the UK? Are you doing that at all?
Yeah, so I think part of my job is to ask those questions that wouldn't otherwise get asked. So, for example, in the UK by 2015, there's likely to be 500,000 people using food banks, which is an incredible situation that we're dependent now on food queues and food banks in this country at all. And then again, looking back to the Second World War and how we were able to create our own food locally on a massive scale, then it's quite feasible that people could start growing their own food in this country. But we can't impose these ideas upon communities; they've got to be wanted. So what I'm looking at is partnering up with the people that are already doing it to provide exemplars. So and a good example of that is in Burnley. There's a garden project called Offshoots, and they've been going for about 10 years in a place called Townley Park. And they've offered to take the contents of one of these food kits and grow an allotment garden there. And then subsequently bring all the school children from the local schools in the area to the garden to actually see it in operation. So rather than actually expecting the school to grow their own garden, you can actually have one that's tended regularly by professionals, so they're no volunteers, so they can actually see this is what you can do with a box. And equally, they can raise funding to put boxes in their own communities.
Oh, right, interesting. That's such a nice idea, to be honest.
Yes, and it's really just asking on a local basis, where are the opportunities? What can we do together to work towards these things? An example of that would be going back to the school we based ourselves in Staffordshire. There was a very large single state community. We asked the children how much money would be raised if everyone put a penny a day in a pot. And it worked out something like £105,000 would be raised at the end of the year.
Blimey. That
kind of money would be, you could put 100% of that into a local project. It could be a garden project, for example, or it could be a creche or whatever it is. The difference being is that money being raised locally has ownership in that local community.
Yeah.
So whatever they do with it, democratically, becomes their own project. It's not then something that's been brought in from the outside and imposed upon them. It's got more latent power within it. It's more potent if it's owned locally. And another good example of people just grabbing the bull by the horns is Incredible Edible, which is being run up in Todmorden.
Yep.
And the lady there, Pam Warhurst, who set that up, is just done incredible things with involving the whole community in growing their own food locally. So every little patch of potential green is being used up, even outside council offices and police offices. They've actually got patches of green. You can go along with a pair of scissors and help yourself to whatever food you want.
Yeah.
Incredible situation. Have you come across that?
Yeah, they've actually been on TNS, Pam has, and the project is amazing. It started off with, I think it was the two of them, and they basically just started planting everywhere, and then effectively, I think they've got, I'm not sure whether they've got over 100 volunteers now helping them out. But yeah, they've basically turned over every area to food, and it's something that I was looking at doing here. And effectively, I've been, I was inspired by them personally. So, and I do believe that in the current climate, we do need to be effectively looking at all our green spaces and going, actually, if food is becoming scarcer or it's becoming more expensive for communities, then why are we not growing our own?
Yeah.
Why are we not coming back to that?
Yes. It's got to come back around again. And the interesting thing is that what Pam, if you watch, Pam would have probably told you this as well, that they didn't want a business plan.
Yeah.
They didn't want to go down the traditional route, because you then got to persuade some bunch of old guys that this is the way to go forward. You'll be sceptical anyway. The best way is to get on and do it and make it happen, and that's what they've done.
It's interesting that, because when I started it off, I just started talking to the local residents here and wasn't getting a lot of buy-in, and ended up talking to the local councils, and they were trying to create this whole project around it. And I sat through these meetings, and at the end I said, this isn't about this, it's about almost just it growing organically, because people are truly interested. They see a plot of land and they think, actually, I want to grow something there. And it's not about, we're going to design this, we'll give you this plot of land and then you're going to do all this with it. Actually, the whole point is that people are just fundamentally inspired and motivated to do it themselves.
That's it. That's totally the spirit of this.
And it should be organic in the way it grows, because that way you've truly got the people involved who are interested and who want to give the time. And it's not almost a false project which has been set up in a garden, and you've got a number of people there, and almost the residents there are forced to look at it, and they don't get involved because these people have come in to do that project there.
Yeah, we can't impose it. It's the same if you look at it at a human level, mentoring and coaching people. Yeah. We can't force an idea on somebody. The idea has to be born from within them. The idea, the passion has to come from within. The motivation comes from inside us. And it's the same with communities. And one of the things I recognised was the latent power of children. When you look at the enthusiasm in a school, and you can see, a few hundred children's eyes all lighting up at the possibility of something. It's tangible, you can feel it. And it's the sort of thing that you can't put in a business plan. And when I also go over to Africa and spend time in the schools there, they have that level of attention and interest all the time. They're continually looking for ways to improve their lot. A lot of children there speak 4 languages, just by the nature of their turnaround story. In fact, there's an interesting bit on the educational front. When the refugees arrived in the camps, they were largely illiterate, because there were a lot of people nomadic, and they had a 5% literacy rate. And the first thing they did when they set up these camps, because it was largely women-led, was they set up educational programs for everyone. And they turned their literacy rate now to 95%, which is probably higher than all of Western countries. Yeah. Which is quite incredible. It's that desire to learn, that desire to make the most of. And so when I spoke to the women leaders about bringing this idea into the schools first, they totally got that as well, because if you, let's say for example, as a parent, you're tired, you're physically tired from all the strain of survival, living in this very harsh environment, it's very difficult for you to adopt another new idea, another new initiative. But if on the other hand, the children come home and they're full of verve and ideas and sparkle for this potential, then they will have a different effect on their families. So it's like taking an energy from the spark from the children and injecting it into the homes in a way that lights up the home, so that they then become passionate about growing their own food. You can't impose that from the top down.
No. So education is effectively what he's saying is education is key here.
Absolutely, yeah. And it's just an idea. Rather than it being something tangible, this is an idea waiting to happen. It's waiting to burst out of communities.
And what's lovely about it is that you are effectively just a spark, like you say, and then they can run with it in whatever way they choose to. It's not something that's been predetermined on them. No,
it's the whole thing about inclusion. So if we go into a UK school and say, this is what these people are doing over here in these horrific situations, or these very challenging situations, what could you do here? And just leave it as a question. And tap into the latent potential within those children in that community, and especially in the poorer communities across Britain, the ones that largely don't get reported on. There's just as much creativity in there as there is in any other. It's just that it doesn't have the opportunity to explore what they could do together. And I think this is where the power is with the whole idea itself is the power of people. Which we're tapping into something that we all instinctively know is good for us. and I believe it's fundamentally something that's right. It's not, if you ask the children, well, I certainly did this myself, because when I asked children about what they thought about the issue of poverty, they couldn't believe that it was still acceptable for adults for other children to live in this way around the world. They couldn't get their head around the idea of how many children were dying every minute from hunger. It rocks their world to think that we as adults are not acting responsibly.
Well, when you consider that actually in some parts of the world we're throwing away huge swathes of food, even in the current climate, and then there's other parts of the world who are desperately needing of it, and it's because of the way our system is set up.
Yeah.
Because fundamentally there is enough food for people across the world when you consider the waste.
Yes, and the key point of the whole idea is about social responsibility, about it being an adventure rather than being a problem.
Yes.
And I think Bonner said something years ago about where you live should not determine whether you live or you die. And that's at the moment, that's the way it is. So if you're born in a poor community in some parts of the world now, your life expectancy is so low. And there's something fundamentally not right about that when we pretend to be a developed world. We're not, if that's going on. So what I'm looking at is how can we turn that problem, and the word problem itself has a clue in it. Problem comes from the Latin root of the word, it's problema, which means something thrown forward. So if we look at this as an opportunity to learn, they've got a massive opportunity in front of us. How can we learn to work together?
And that fundamentally is what it's about, isn't it? Because
absolutely.
I do think in many cases our communities have been broken up in many ways through social policies, governmental policies, and the way we now work and things like this. So we don't tend to work together as we used to. And we tend to all be very independent and quite isolated in many respects in our communities.
Yes. One of my greatest lessons in there was recognising they had true interdependence in the refugee camps. And in a very black and white sense, that means unless I look after you, I will die. It's very black and white. And so there is no us and them, it's us. We are one community and we all look out for each other.
Yeah. So
there's no separation there. And it means that the community is bonded in a way that it isn't over here. Here we're fragmented, largely. And we're judging each other based on social differences, or colours of skin, or wealth, or whatever it is. And it's all superficial. Yeah. Underneath all that, when you strip us down to human beings, we all care for each other. And that's the bit that really, it moves me to see it in action in a place where you and I, we would die within 2 weeks if we were left to our own devices there. Yeah. Because it's so harsh, and yet they're eking out a survival there. So there's some great lessons to be had, and you asked before about the connection between the two communities. One of the things we're doing with the food kits is taking pictures of the people that are sponsoring the boxes. So if it's a school and it's the whole school, we'll put all their faces in there. If it's an individual or a company, then we'll get their pictures in. And it's the pictures that go in the boxes will be opened up at their end, purely to say this is other people making a stand with you. Yeah. That's absolutely fundamental to this. There was a great quote that came across by a lady that talked about this idea of charity and aid. And it said, if you've come here to help us, you're wasting your time. But if you've come here because your learning is wrapped up in ours, then let's work together. Something along those lines. And that's what it is. It's that fundamental. We're both learning in this situation of how over in this country we can learn to work together, and how in that country they can learn to stand on their feet in terms of their own food production, food security. I must look up that quote and learn it off by heart.
It sounded fantastic, I have to say. So your aim is to help approximately 20,000 families, is my understanding, break their dependence from their food aid in the long term.
Yeah.
And that's a massive, massive project. Even though you're only saying it's a spark, it's still massive. But what you're looking for is to get people to be involved, aren't you?
Yeah, people from all walks of community as well.
So how can people get involved with you?
We're looking for volunteers in all kinds of different skill sets. So whatever your skill sets, get in touch and see how you'd like to help. So you can either, as volunteers, you can help take the story of the food kits into local schools, into local community groups, into mothers groups, and see how we can work together to use that loose change that's lying around the country and get these kits into the hands of the people. So we've got a number of volunteers already working. We're partnering in the UK with community service volunteers at local level. And they've got something like 160 centres around the country. So as we start to ramp up the programme, we've then got places where people can go and add their support to. And we're also looking for volunteers to help pack the boxes. So once numbers of boxes have been sponsored, then we'll have youth volunteers, people from excluded parts of the community, working on the packing of the boxes in centres around the country.
Fantastic. And you're also looking for funds, aren't you?
Yes, sponsors, businesses can get involved. It's a form of social responsibility. It's low level because it's only a small amount compared to other CSR programs. But if it's something you can involve your staff in, then even better. And it's not just incumbent on the owners of the company, it's more about the whole company working together. That's where I'm looking to develop the most impact. Is the more people we get working in groups, the more impactful this will be. Because we're then just taking an idea, and that idea is spreading amongst us in terms of what could we do.
Yes. Because this is the thing, isn't it, really? When you were talking about the creativity of children, if we allow it to run, and if you allow people to run with it, what can you do? That is the question, isn't it?
Yes.
That's where you really get that adventure, isn't it?
Yeah, and especially when you keep it really practical as well, because there will always be limitations, because you won't be able to do some things. But because you're involving people from all parts, you've got the children's creativity, but you've also got business involvement. Businesses have processes and systems and machinery and all sorts of things they can add to the mix, and that's already come into play. So there's practical elements you can bring. So an example of that would be when the permaculture food forests get built, they need to work with large diggers. So you use JCBs, for example, and large earth moving equipment, and rather than ploughing a field in straight lines, they cut what they call a sway-on contour, which is like a big snake in the ground, and it creates a water harvesting ditch on contour. And this then passively collects the available water. So an example of a good partnership is children working together in a local community around somebody that supplies JCBs. So JCB on a local level can get involved in digging swales.
Fantastic.
So there's always ways of bringing all the different skills into the mix.
I love the fact that that the whole mix of this, which isn't just about working overseas and us funding that, but also the ability to bring that back and to actually do it in our own communities really appeals to me. Because these grow your own kits, they don't just have to go overseas; they can be used by ourselves, which I think is lovely.
Yeah, the interesting thing there as well is about we tend to think, speaking for everyone, that poverty is something that is down to governments and charities to sort out, and large NGOs. It's nothing to do with me. Yeah. Actually it is. It's to do with all of us. And if we could see that poverty on our streets, we would do something about it. Mm-hmm. What I want to talk about, if we look at the children dying of hunger in the developing parts of the world, if that was visible to us, we would do something about it immediately. But because it isn't, because it's crushed to the back, it's no longer the news headlines. Then it tends to go to the back of our consciousness. But what I see and what I've experienced as a man is it's always there. Once you've seen it, you can't deny it. And I think what began my journey was in 1984-85 there was Live Aid, a massive problem in Ethiopia. And I physically remember brick walling, putting this wall around my heart to say, no, it's nothing to do with me, I can't go with this. How can I make an impact on that? And then years later, around about 99, 2000, I felt those brick walls coming down, and then I was left with no option. I have to do something about it. And I believe that brick wall that was around my heart is around many men's hearts. And I believe that men can remove those walls and then act from that place of common connection, common humanity, common responsibility.
Yeah, I think this comes back to our wanting to have true connection with each other.
Yeah, very much so. And it's something that when I visit the camps, I see that connection is there everywhere. It's an interesting point was when I was in the UK, I learned about this program called Every Child Matters, and it was a government-imposed program. Yeah. And yet, when you go to the camp, when you go to anywhere in the developing world, every child matters is the way of life. Yeah. Every single child matters. Yeah. So why do we need to tell him that here?
Why
doesn't make sense, does it?
It doesn't. No, you're absolutely right. This has been a brilliant interview. Cheers, Martin. I once read a quote years and years ago that when we have jumble sales for the military, like we have jumble sales for food, I think we know we've won, because so much of our money goes into the military and actually and is focused on killing each other. When if we put only a tiny percentage of that money into connecting and doing the things that you actually are doing, we would have such a better world.
I believe so, because it's in everyone's heart. We'd all feel better about it, and that's something to think of in terms of our own legacy. You know, what are we doing that's contributing to greater space? That's a good poignant point to leave it on there.
So just tell my audience how they get in contact with you if they want to volunteer, buy a grow pack, start to do some sponsoring. How do they get in contact with you?
I've got an email address here, which is info@newdawnproject.com.
Smashing.
So you can write to me on that one. I can send you all the contact details, which you can put on your website if that works.
Yeah, can do. That'd be brilliant. Okay.
Rather than getting the numbers out, because it's only a mobile number that we're working off at the moment.
Okay, well,
offices.
Yeah, well, let's everybody email, and effectively, if they want to give you a call, let them. They can contact me on TNS Radio, and I'll give that details. Smashing. Thank you very much for being with us today, Martin.
Thank you, David. That's a real privilege. Thank you for the time.
Brilliant.
Nick said I couldn't follow Motorhead. I said, yes, I can. Someone else, you need to stop being so cheeky. Okay, behave. Right then, where are we? Yeah, it probably is past your bedtime, someone else. Right then, Sovereignty tune, indeed. I hope you're doing air guitar with me. And Jim and Lorraine have arrived. Jim and Lorraine are in the building. Thank you very much. Okay, lovely to see you all. Is anything interesting going on in the chat box? Or have you all just been singing along? Anyway, sorry the podcast dropped out at some stage. You know my technical skills. I know what they should be. So, anyway, where was I? Oh, Sharon Osbourne. That was what I was going to talk about this week. Well, partly. And, you know, I am stunned about what is currently going on in the media, which is that they're putting out quite a lot of information around women having parts of their bodies removed. You know, there is, you know, and Sharon Osbourne is the latest celebrity to now step up in the media and say that, you know, she is part of all this and had this done. And I feel really, really sorry for her, you know, if I'm honest. So she's basically a victim, and this is where it's going, and I'm going to be really outspoken about this. She's a victim of the mainstream kind of medical trend known as this preventative body part removal. And, and it's apparently for those with faulty genes. They're actively removing body parts to effectively avoid them getting cancer. And it is heartbreaking to me, absolutely heartbreaking. I'm seeing more and more of these studies, and we know what it's like. They start putting more and more information out in the mainstream media to start to influence people to then go and have it done. And they're being convinced by their doctors that they've got faulty genes in the first place, and that they're going to have this for their lifetime, and they're going to have a lifetime of suffering because of it, because of these faulty genes. Now, Sharon Osbourne has had a double mastectomy after basically a doctor's tests, all the tests that they now do. They revealed that she had inherited a gene fault that was thought to increase her risk of breast cancer. So she has got breast cancer, or there was no findings there which said that the test showed that she had it. No, that she might get it. This is almost like Minority Report in regards to, it's like pre-crime, all this pre-testing now. So rather than look at what might be causing that faulty gene or that gene expression, which basically will change in your body with your diet, no, instead they're now taking women's body parts away, cutting them out, just in case. And according to Osborne, she felt that there was nothing else she could do to prevent a second case of cancer, because of course she had it earlier. After previously she was dealing with, let me think what it was. I think it was colon cancer she had previously. So it is just sad. It's heartbreaking. And she actually says, I'll just say this, I've had cancer before and I didn't want to live under that cloud. I decided to take everything off and had a double mastectomy. And this is what I'm reading. More and more articles are appearing in the mainstream about women having this done to them. And it is absolutely unnecessary. In my eyes and in my philosophy, it is totally unnecessary to have this done. So particularly when there's mountains of evidence proving that diet actually helps. Diet helps. It really does. The right nutrition in place. It is barbaric what is happening. Truly barbaric. And the doctors are not telling women about the healing power of nutrition and lifestyle. No, that's what's truly disturbing. So there's mountains and mountains of research out there. But instead, no, you've got a faulty gene which might cause cancer in the future, and therefore, to prevent that, you're going to actually have those body parts off. How ridiculous is that? But, okay, instead, you could change your diet, which will change your gene expression. That is known. Most people don't realise it. So it's really, really disturbing for me what is actually happening. And considering the amount of research that actually proves that nutrition will help and the lifestyle changes will help. And what is even more disturbing for me is that some women are being told that it's the only way of them staying alive for their children. So they're having their ovaries removed, their breasts removed, etc., etc. That is almost like blackmail. How awful is that? Absolutely awful. And Rich is saying, it's funny, my dad told me his myeloid leukemia is due to faulty genes. I digress. So it is not your diet means and your life and the lifestyles. Well, there's research out there that shows that cancer, genetic, let me not talk about cancer, but the genetic illnesses that are down to genetics are only about 5%, only account for about 5% of illnesses. So there's research out there that shows that. And of course, there's loads of research out there. But if that's the case, then that you can, obviously, by altering lifestyle, environmental factors, your diet, you can fundamentally change your gene expression. And I won't deny that environmental factors make a huge impact nowadays. We know what's going on. So why, for me, though, why are doctors failing to mention the scientific fact that nutrition helps to fight cancer and it dramatically influences gene expression? Why are they failing to mention that factor to these women? And instead, they're having their body parts removed. They're telling them that the only way to resolve this happening to them is by having these body parts removed. When it could be as simple as changing your nutritional choices. How simple is that? Would you rather your wife, girlfriend, yourself have your body part removed or just change your nutrition? Tell me that. I think this is absolutely barbaric, and I am quite upset about it. I'm reading more and more. This is the thing about it, and I am absolutely finding it heartbreaking. Anyway, particularly when the research is out. They do so much research on nutrition nowadays, masses and masses of research on nutrition and all the different compounds, chemical reactions, and yet we're over and over again. You're pushed towards the mainstream therapies in regards to chemo or radiotherapy or the surgery. You're not given the alternatives, and of course, under the Cancer Act, you're not allowed to be given the alternatives. So we actually, if you're listening to this and you're outside of the UK, in the UK we have what's called the Cancer Act of 1939, and effectively we're not allowed to talk about anything that might aid the resolving of cancer, which doesn't fall into the mainstream. So there's a lot of evidence out there supporting nutrition, masses. And what are the doctors reading? It's almost like they are blinkered towards sending people to this end. Oh, we have to take a body part away to resolve it. It is absolutely ridiculous. It makes absolutely no sense. When you understand cellular health, it makes no sense at all to then remove a body part in case cancer's going to express itself in that particular part. It makes no sense at all. Cancer is a very deep picture, a fundamental change across all of your cells, not just one type of cell. And it may express itself in the end in one type of cell, but fundamentally it has gone totally down to cellular level. Now, Michael's put in the chat box about knowyourgenes.org. So there you go, about genetic disorders. And yeah, that was the word I was looking for. I'm losing my train of thought. And Nick's saying doctor relationship should be based on informed consent, but the informed part is neglected. Well, I feel that often doctors, they're trained in the paradigm they're trained in, but they're not trained outside of that. Therefore, unless they purposefully go off and research and read all the latest research that's coming out, they will do what more or less they have been trained to do. So Rich is saying, oh, you flip down, who still trusts doctors? Never need to go in over 10 years. And this is the thing. If you look after your body, if you do your right nutrition, you look at the lifestyle, and you remove some of the environmental factors that basically are obviously impacting on us, like BPAs and everything, then in effect you will reduce your need to go to your doctor and have that interaction with them, and then have their biased points of view about what needs to happen with your body. And Nala's saying no money in diet change for the dogs. Yeah, you're absolutely right. Dogs rather than dogs. You're absolutely right. There is no money in diet. The pharmaceutical industry and the medical care industry is set up to send you through funnels. They screen you so they can get you into these systems. It's all about filtering you through into the system. They have all these labels and they encompass more and more groups of people. They have more and more conditions. You know, if you blink too much, there's probably going to be a psychiatric jug for it at some stage. Doesn't bear thinking about. But they have masses and masses of conditions now that come under it so that they can filter you into this system. Because that is what creates money. You constantly taking their medical interventions in whichever variety that you choose to take them in. Or you could just have a good diet. Grow your own. Take control back. You know, surround yourself with the medicinal herbs. Surround yourself with the right foods. You know, grow a little microgarden in your kitchen so you've got your greens. Cut them out of the equation more and more. And of course, you will start to have better health because you are in control of it and you know what's going into your body all of the time. And all of those things are absolutely fundamental. Rich is saying smartphones, smart meters, new generation mobile mass, all invisible to us, but do affect our body. Yep, indeed. And Richie, I did a previous show with Smart Meters, stopsmartmeters.org. That's in the podcasts area. If you want to go and listen to that, Rich, if you've not heard it, it was really interesting. Mike, who did that show that day, he had real packed full of information it was. But you're absolutely right. We've got all of these invisible factors. If you've got Wi-Fi going, then switch it off. If you do not need it on, switch it off. You know, constantly, if you've got apps and you're on your phone and you're putting them under your pillow or you've got them in your room at night sleeping, get them as far away from you as you can. Don't carry your phones on you. It's all invisible, but it's all affecting your health. You see, when I see cancers, I always see fungal infections. I was having this conversation with one of my clients the other day because I always see fungal infections within their case history picture. That is really fascinating. So if you have got fungal infections happening, start to knock that on its head. You know, because, and I always see inflammation pictures as well. And inflammation has been linked to most of the world's leading diseases in lots of research, particularly cancer and heart disease, particularly. You know, and inflammation in many people's eyes and in much research is actually thought to be at the heart of virtually all chronic disease in some respects. And I will be honest, when I am screening people, I often see inflammation pictures. So if you have got levels of inflammation, you need to start to manage that. You don't want to turn that into a chronic disease. Your body's constantly having to manage that inflammation. It creates more oxidative stress in the body. The body then has to deal with that. And your diet can directly impact on the presence of cancer-linked inflammation. Because it can alter the very genes that cause that inflammation. You can reduce that inflammation. You can alter those genes through your diet. You do not have to have your body parts removed. You do not have to take these medications in the way they're giving them. It will just take a different way of shopping and eating. But it'd be well worth your while doing it. Let me have a quick look through the chat box. What's going on? Yep, Jim and Lorraine are saying, get your house back to Ethernet. Stay away from Wi-Fi. Absolutely. I've got all of my home is basically back on, and it only went off it for a short period of time until I did the research. It's all on the wires. So in effect, I am all hardwired in, and I suggest that you do the same thing. And of course, it's going to be difficult with your neighbours, but at least you've negated one of the strongest impacts around you. So it says, Michael, do you think that the doctors that recommend these invasive surgery for financial gains are ignorant of the real alternatives to treatment? I think it's a level of both, if I'm honest. I do think that in the States, far more than here in the UK, that there obviously is a financial gain behind them doing those sorts of things. But over here, if you've got more people going into surgery, you will get more funding. So there is a level of funding around the surgery as well here. So obviously there's a financial gain, I do think, but I think it's probably far more in the States than here. But if you've got more people going through those invasive surgeries, you've got all of the things that happen afterwards, because it's shown that those people tend to need more medical care afterwards. So why wouldn't you put people through those medical surgeries? Inevitably, if you've lost part of your body parts, then in effect, you're going to need more support probably in the long term. And ignorance of the real alternatives to treatment. I think there's a growing awareness amongst doctors of diets. I won't deny that. But I feel that many of them are put in a very difficult position, because in particular, if they start to promote alternatives, they are then falling out of where their license is. And we all know there's a huge list of names of doctors who've had their license in the States particularly removed, and look at, there's a number of doctors, I can't remember her name, Mahill, is it Sarah Mahill, Dr. Mahill, I think her name is. She is constantly being investigated for what she puts out there, which is a mixture of alternative as well as mainstream care, and in effect she is, like I say, constantly investigated. So I think that there's a level of fear there from doctors as well. Why would you want to lose your career? Training to be a doctor is a long haul, is for the long haul, let's face it, and it's quite expensive. But ignorance of real alternatives, I think they're kept underground on purpose. I think they're kept out of the mainstream on purpose. I think lots of doctors do know about them, but choose to say that there's no research around most of them. One of them is the whole vitamin C argument. You got a Nobel Prize winning scientist, Linus Pauling, and how many times when I put articles out on the internet about vitamin C do I get that it's not proven? It's just rubbish. It's proven over and over again. But very much, you're constantly told there's no scientific proof behind the alternative therapies, when there is a lot out there, particularly nutrition. And when they deny it, I find it hilarious when I'm told, oh, there's no support for nutrition. Really? So what are all the scientists then doing out there studying omega-3? And that's just one of the molecules. Water, one of the most researched molecules ever. So let's see what else everybody said. Now I've had a little bit of rant there. Okay. What else is in the chat box? Rich, I'm really pleased with you, but I'm not going to read that out on the podcast. But it is about foam masts. Yeah, it was a poorly written question. Your grammar was appalling, Michael. I expect better of you. That was a 7 out of 10. Yep, your English teacher, your English written teacher would not be happy at all. So has anyone got any diet foods for diabetes? I'm putting a list together. Well, one off the top of my head is chlorella is very, very good for helping to balance blood sugar out. What I might do is, if you're asking that, Rich, I might do a show on all of those types of foods that help to balance blood sugar out. Garlic's another one. It helps to balance blood sugar out really, really well. So get those in your diet. So it's all about making the right food choices for me. If you want to change this picture and cut out these people who are cutting parts of these bodies away, it's just appalling. We need to change our diets, and it is that simple. You can create or eliminate the inflammation in your body just by making the right food choices, which are basically, high quality, nutrition packed superfoods. Ignore the calories. I don't care about calories. I just want you to be getting high quality, nutritious food in your bodies. And you will affect the genes that cause the inflammation within your body. And researchers, one of the lead researchers from a Norwegian study basically said, and I quote this directly, this affects not only the genes that cause inflammation in the body, which was what we originally wanted to study, but also genes associated with the development of cardiovascular disease, some cancers, dementia, type 2 diabetes, and all the major lifestyle-related diseases. So they found that just by changing your diet, it affected the genes. That is the latest research from these guys. So we've got loads of well-documented studies showing that antioxidants and the diet, and you should make sure you've got an antioxidant-rich diet, performs, function of reducing inflammation as well. And antioxidant-rich foods, I talked about them the other week. You know, you're talking about your fruits and vegetables here. Everything has antioxidants in them, though. So fundamentally, as long as you're not cooking it, you will keep the antioxidants very, very rich in them and very dense in them. So, but with antioxidant-rich foods, you can fight cancer at a genetic level. And you know, another piece of research I'm just going to mention here, Jefferson's Kimmel Cancer Center researchers basically said, now we have genetic proof that mitochondrial oxidative stress is important for driving tumour growth. So if you are eating the wrong foods and taking in all these chemicals and things like this, and it is causing you oxidative stress, then it is driving tumour growth. This is what they found. And so basically, having antioxidant-rich foods will reduce that oxidative stress. And of course, oxidative stress increases your inflammation picture. So Rich said, cool, it's right. So it's from my friend. Okay, well, I'll do blood sugar show in the next few weeks. I'll do part of my show doing that for you, Rich. So I'll just remind myself. Let me remind myself. Blood sugar. I'll write that down. Okay. What about bloated stomach? Oh, I can cover that off on that day as well, probably. But won't go into a bloated stomach too much because there's a number of reasons why you might have a bloated stomach, in all honesty. Let's see. I wouldn't suggest if you've got a bloated stomach, eating raw might help at this time of year. I don't really want to go into too much of that. And but coriander is very, very good for detoxing and getting out heavy metals out of the system. So it's very, very useful in that way. You always have coriander in your diet, particularly if the chem spraying us. So if you've ever had a lot of chemtrails that day, parsley, coriander, chlorella, the usual stuff, you never know what they're dropping on us. So there's now a conversation going on in the chat box about getting bloated. Probably just eating too much, eating too quickly, not chewing your foods properly. Start at the mouth. Always imagine that your enzymes are created in the mouth. They need to break, your whole digestive system needs to be able to break it down. And you need to make sure it's hydrated. So those are just the small amount of things that you can be doing without even looking at the diet. Always look at how you are eating your foods first of all, and whether you are hydrated first. I often resolve all the bloating in stomachs that, you know, just by doing some basics, people taking the time over food. People do not take their time over food enough anymore. Everyone eats on the run, is sat cramped. So they're all cramped over. And those are some of the basics. Chew your food in your mouth. Truly break it down first of all. And someone else is saying, are you preggers? Yeah, just check that out first. So for me, if it's this simple, and it's just about, you can reduce your inflammation, which potentially is being shown through research, and you know, and the gene expression, you can change that through diet. Then why are we not being told about it? Why are these poor, poor women not being told about it? It is shocking. They're losing body parts when all they have to do is change their diet to change the gene expression. What on earth is going on here? I do not know. I am lost, or I'm not lost for words, as you've probably gathered. But I'm finding it heartbreaking. And if nothing else after this show, please go off and tell people that they do not need to have, if you've got somebody saying to them, actually they have to change have body parts taken off. Actually, no, they just need to change their diet in many respects, many cases. And the thing for me as well is it's really interesting how there is a sudden proliferation of these reports in the media about women doing this. And it is a nice little earner as far as I'm concerned, you know, considering how many people now getting cancer. It's a bit like running on all these pink ribbons and everyone running for cancer. What a nice little earner again for the pharmaceutical industry and for that part of the medical industry. And the fact that celebrities are now partaking in this process and the media is running with it probably means, you know, it's a bit like women having cesareans, isn't it, really? That this is likely to increase these procedures. hey, let's keep the surgeons in business. Gosh, that's very cynical of me, isn't it, today? And well, just as an aside, did you know that most cesareans are performed in office hours? So if your baby wants to arrive outside of office hours, oh no, we're going to have a cesarean in office hours, I think you'll find. Hate to think that you might let our bodies work naturally. We might allow our genes to express themselves as they should through diet. Anyway, what was I on? Yeah, let me just, Suela, raw food makes it worse. It will do. I haven't got time to explain that today about why it would make it worse, but it would probably make it worse at this time of year. And I would start by doing the little things I say, first of all, which is taking your time over your food, smaller meals, breaking your food down, chewing it until it's totally blended in the mouth, making sure you're hydrated before you eat, not drinking whilst you're eating. Those are the key first things you need to be doing without even looking at the diet itself. There's a reason why you're becoming bloated, but you have to look at the way your digestive system's working first of all, and what you're doing, because it might be just what you're doing rather than what you're eating. But yeah, I wouldn't be putting more raw foods in. I can't imagine it's going to be any better for you. And John McCann is saying hospitals are putting more people on insulin in our. They said people are well for longer on it. It is interesting, isn't it? Creates another dependency, doesn't it? And they're all for making you dependent. This is the thing. They are making you dependent on their products for you to be able to continue your life. Stress. So Ayla's saying stress. There you are. You've got your answer. So very possibly you don't need to change your diet. You just need to change the way you're eating and create calmness around when you're eating and not eating on the run. And if you are feeling stressed, don't eat at that particular point, because of course stress, when you're stressed, so what happens is it triggers your adrenals. So that then triggers the adrenaline, and that changes the way your body's digestive system will function at that point, because it'll either slow it down or it'll exit everything in it. So the fact that it's potentially slowing it down, which sounds like what's happening, it will mean that stuff is sitting around much, much longer. Your body also becomes more dehydrated, but your body doesn't want to be digesting food, because actually it takes a lot of effort and energy to digest food. So if you are stressed, your body thinks it's in fight or flight. It's trying to escape a situation. So it wants to put its energy into that. It doesn't want to put it into digesting food. And this is why when you're in a stress state, you really shouldn't eat, because your body's not going to digest it anyway. So deal with the stress. Calm everything down when you're eating. Eat when you're calm and enjoy the food, and truly chew it and take your time over it. Okay. Let's see. And Jim and Lorraine are saying smaller servings of food many times during the day is far more better for your body than one large meal. Well, it might be in some cases, but in other cases, just come back to something I just said, which is that about how much energy it takes to actually digest your food. And so it might be for some people too tiring to be almost having their digestive system working all day in that case. So it is about getting that balance right for yourself. You'll only know yourself whether that approach is good for you. And Michael's saying, isn't it amazing how vitally important the environment is to attaining good health, air, water, food, stress-free surroundings, etc.? Absolutely. Liking the grammar on that one as well. Well done. That's up to a 9. But he's absolutely right. Absolutely. And Rich is saying to Suela, take 30 minutes out of your daily life for breathing exercises. And that is a really interesting point as well. Mark Serkis, the interviewer I had the other week, he was talking about how breathing, he uses it in his protocol to supporting people with cancer. So I always get people doing breathing exercises. Absolutely key. Remember that 75% of your toxicity comes out through your lungs. So basically, you want to be ensuring that you are reducing the oxidative stress. It's a great way of reducing oxidative stress by making sure you are fully breathing properly. I hope you're all sitting up and not all slouched, so that you can actually get the air to your stomach, breathe into the stomach, the abdomen. Like Rich is now going to, on the chat box, give you all a little bit of instruction now I can see about how to breathe properly. And Sovereignty saying big breakfast in the morning and resting snacks, not some fruit. And this is the thing, we're all different. So I tend to do juice and a smoothie, very light smoothie, some nuts and seeds in it, and then in effect I have a larger meal in the evening. Well, it's not in the evening; it's about late afternoon. So that's what suits my body. We're all different. No one thing will fit us all. And this is the thing. And this is the thing about the pharmaceutical industry. It's mass production health, and we're not mass produced people. Let's see what else is going on. When are you going to give us grammar lesson in TNS? I'm not. I'll be honest. I failed English appallingly. Michael can probably do that better than I can. So there are lots of things we can have in our diets which are really interesting. Now, researchers from, where were they? University of Michigan, I think, if I remember rightly, and they have like a cancer centre there. They found that curcumin, which is in turmeric, and piperine, which is in your black pepper, may kill the cells that eventually lead to breast tumours. So this all comes back to diet. Over and over again, this comes back to diet. And in their research, these things were applied directly to the breast cells. So obviously they've taken them out and they've put them in like a little petri dish, and they've done it like that. But fundamentally, they were applied directly, and the substances killed what are known as stem cells. And those would lead possibly to tumour growth. And they didn't damage the healthy breast tissue. So the normal cells were not affected by this approach. Hey, who would have thought it? Natural medicine doesn't harm the body. A bit of pepper in your diet, a bit of curcumin, get some turmeric. I'm giving you permission to have a curry. Who'd have thought it? Although, Suela, I probably wouldn't go the curry way at the moment. I'd just let everything calm down a little bit. So they found that, and they said that if they can limit the number of stem cells, we can limit the number of cells with potential to form tumours. And that was their lead author of the actual research. You know, but that isn't the only piece of research, let's face it, that's come out that's basically shown that turmeric can prevent tumours and is supportive of reducing cancer in the body. Over and over again, it's been shown. And I remember recently reading in the British journal Nature, they discovered that molecules could be blocked. And these were called rankle or something, rankle molecules, by just adding turmeric. So they know this. So it stops the basic progression of this disease. It can halt it from just having a great diet in place, probably adding a bit of pepper and having the odd curry. You know, add your turmeric to things like your curries, your pastas, your potatoes, fish, eggs. It's loaded with health benefits, turmeric. It really is. And it's another one. Oh, Rich, it's another one. It helps to fight your diabetes. In research, it's shown that. And heart disease. I think I remember it saying heart disease. And black pepper can be added to almost anything, let's face it. Yeah, Sovereignty saying you can add turmeric, coriander and cumins to soup, stews, rubbing chicken and meat. Absolutely. You can have it on most meals. Fantastic. You can. And if anyone's got any recipes, let's start posting them. You know, let's create our own recipe folder, maybe, for everybody to use. Let's see what else is going on in the chat box. Hey. Yeah, get out in the woods, open country and woods, and breathe in. And by the sea, of course, it's all about the ionization, you know. Fantastic. Bitching Bob. I've heard that quote before, bitching. We are not machine men with machine hearts and machine minds. We are humans. We are indeed. Let's tell them that. And let's start using these products. Let's start using natural foods and getting away from what they're doing. Because the more we do that, the more in control we'll be of our own health. Bitching Bob, a menu, great idea. Yeah. Let's see what everybody's got. So everyone start posting. If you've got nice recipes, post them. And then at least we can have a great Saturday afternoon cooking. Who's cooking? Who's making dinner? Who's going to make dinner for us? There's 25 of us in the chat box at the moment. So, 25 of us. We're all pitching. And now let's look at another thing for me is your omega-3s. Now I've been going on about flax oil for like the last couple of weeks, or your electrons and the interaction with the cell membrane, really fundamental. But omega-3 acids, they've been shown to support the cancer patients and the reduction of it. And it is repeatedly linked, like your fish oils are repeatedly linked. They cannot ignore this. It is over and over. There are masses of studies around omega fish oils. Huge amounts of studies. And they're repeatedly linked to breast cancer prevention and having very good positive treatment results. And they constantly say, I'll tell you what really annoys me. I don't know, it is a bit of a rant today, isn't it? They constantly say, after they put these studies out, we need more research. Really? How much more research do you need that actually food works? But you know what? If they can't patent it, well, they'll just keep doing the scientific research around it. But these fats are called essential. So your omega-3s and stuff are called essential. And that's because your body doesn't produce them on its own. So it is essential that you get them in your diet. And they're found in your fatty fish, your nuts, your plant sources. I particularly like flax oil. I like my hemp oil. Anyone else like anything else? Got my chia seeds in there. Sorela's making a cooking chicken curry tonight. Hey, we're all invited. I think you might regret that. And Rich is saying roast honey parsnips with kale. Oh, very nice. Oh, that sounds lovely. Yeah, and if bitching say if anyone's got recipes, post them on your member pages and TNS, and then send us a link so that we all know they're in there, so we can start to actually share. Yeah, I know what you mean, bitching. I'm definitely up for those parsnips. Obviously, I'm vegan, so I'm not going to be doing the chicken curry. Yeah, and bitching saying I love peppers, chilies, etc. Are they good for you? Packed with antioxidants, fantastic for you. Reduction of inflammation. You'll be a super being in no time, bitching. It might actually resolve the issue that we were talking about in the host box last night for you, which I won't go into on air. But anyway, now there's quite a lot of studies are basically showing fish oil supplement there. Every single month, new studies come out about fish oil supplements. It is fascinating how the doctors can actually ignore this and say that they don't help. But it actually found, one particular one found that daily supplements of fish oils basically had a 32% reduced risk. So those women who took them reduced their risk of developing the most common form of cancer. That's a huge reduction. A huge reduction. I think that works out better than some of the vaccinations, isn't it? I shouldn't laugh. Has everybody read about the latest vaccination that's only been shown that they've been trialling on the poor Indian population, and it was found to only be 30%. I can't remember what it was working. Makes you wonder what on earth they're actually doing with it, doesn't it? There's poor people all been vaccinated. Bitching. Your secret is safe with me and the rest of the hosts that were in the chat box last night. So this study that I'm talking about, though, it actually had 35,000 postmenopausal women. So it's not a small study by any stretch of the imagination. So when your doctor says there's no studies out there showing that nutrition supports the reduction of cancer, I hate to say it, but this is a pretty big study to be ignoring. And they interviewed them about the supplemental practices in general, to be honest, and they followed them for up to 6 years. So this is not a small study. This isn't one of your GM studies that has been done for 90 days, and then they say actually 90 days is enough to see that the impact it's going to have on the population's health. No, this was done for 6 years. And only 880 of them developed breast cancer who were taking these supplements. It was definitely lower in those people, in those women. So that, and I'm reading another study here as well, and around cancer recurrence, and that was also reduced as well by women who were consuming these fats and were not eating the cooked fats, your hydrogenated fats, your trans fats, all of those things. So you're far better off having these fats in your diet rather than actually having them as supplements, by the way. So, because your body can break them down, the body then gets all of the nutrients to enable it to break it down. It's not just getting that molecule effectively, or series of molecules, I should say. Let's have a quick look in the chat box. Well, what are you going on about? So Rich is saying he changed his diet 5 years ago when he started growing. Fantastic. And foraging. I completely agree with you. It's really sad that people won't open their doors to open their eyes to new foods. Because your body really does thank you for it. And yeah, bitching saying about amazing how people will get hooked on the processed stuff. Well, if you listen to one of the first shows I did with Gregory Ann Cox, she was part of the catering industry. She talks about how scientifically they work the recipes in food so you become addicted to them. They don't want you to not keep eating them. There's no mileage in them producing the food for you that effectively you then don't eat more of. They want you to keep eating more of it because that's the way they make profits. There's no mileage in someone like me, who's like a skinny mini. They don't make money. I don't make money out of me. And, my food bill, a bit like Rich, from foraging and be collecting wild foods. I'm eating very nutritious. I'm very focused on the nutrition. Means that I don't eat huge amounts because I've got the nutrition in place. They don't make mileage out of people like us. So they have to make their foods addictive. And this is why when you start to go on your junk food or your poorer choices, you start to then be ending up eating them more and more and more. Because you're driven in that direction to have more and more of it. It's a bit like Coke. Most people don't realise the amount of salt in Coke. It's purposely designed to be addictive and to drive your taste buds to want more of it. It really is. And polytunnel is the way forward, Rich is saying. I gave up my polytunnel about a year and a half ago, unfortunately. Whole different story, but yeah, I agree. I've got a little greenhouse which is fabulous. It works for me. But if you've not got a lot of space, then grow your microgreens in the kitchen. Do all your sprouted foods. Get your nutrition like that. It doesn't have to cost a lot of money. People often say, "Oh, eating properly it costs more money." Actually, I find it doesn't. When you focus on nutrition, the amount of food you consume tends to go down because you're focused on quality foods. But the more you can grow and forage, the more your body will thank you for it. Really will. So the best sources for me for fats, you fish, if you eat fish, and your nuts and your seeds. But if you are eating fish, be cautious about all the mercury, that's now in them, and make sensible choices with it. But fortunately, some of the fish that have got the highest levels of your omega-3 fats tend to have the lowest levels of mercury, is the research that I've read. Whether that's still the case, I don't know, but at the time, that was what I was reading. So, but, don't forget your plant-based sources, your flax, your walnuts, and things like that. Your nuts, Brazil nuts, all those sorts of things. They're all fabulous for you. Let's have a quick look. Yeah, bitching saying make your own polytunnel. You can do. You just, I was going to say, I hate to say it, I was going to say, it's not that difficult. I'll be honest. I struggle to even put a painting up, never mind on the wall or a shelf. One of my friends comes around to do it for me. I hate to say it, but I have seen people build these things within a day with all bits and pieces that they've found. So, and then just cover it with your plastic. Get your mates in. We should all have polytunnel parties and go around and build everybody a polytunnel for themselves so we can all take control. And Sovereignty saying when you remove the money spent on Pepto-Bismol and medical expenses, growing your own costs less. It does indeed. The amount of people on those things now, and you think about how much and how damaging they are to the body. Absolutely stupidly damaging when actually it's your poor choice of food or the way you're eating that's probably caused it. And local market is the best place to do your shopping. So absolutely, bring it back to local. Oh, I always say bring it. The more you can eat locally, the more it's likely to be within your season as well. So it's going to be more likely to be the right type of foods for you. And Rich is saying, I never forget my nuts. Yeah, please don't make the chat box go any more downhill. And polytunnel saunas, indeed. Now, I was talking about walnuts just then. I remember a piece of research that was done by, I think it was the American Cancer Institute, if I remember rightly, and the California Walnut Commission. So obviously how unbiased this is, I don't know, in all honesty, because we all know what happens with funded research. But I think they found that mice who ate walnuts were less likely to develop breast tumours than those who do not. And that's just linked to basically the omega oils in them. But it's absolutely key. It's just showing you how important these oils are, how important all these things are for your diet, in your diet. Apparently these mice had, they had fewer glands with tumours in them, and they were smaller tumours. And these mice apparently were bred to create tumours, unfortunately. The things that they do to animals is just appalling, to be honest. But, it was the equivalent. They gave these mice the equivalent of about, I don't know, about 100 grams of walnuts or something. Something like that. Anyway, I think it was like a couple of tablespoons of walnuts maybe. So it's not a lot you have to eat. This is the thing. But, one of their researchers said it's clear that walnuts contribute to a healthy diet that can reduce breast cancer. They were quite open about saying that. And, you've got walnuts. I've got more than, there's more than that reason for taking them. They're rich in your vitamin E for a start. And of course, there's research out there showing that vitamin E will help with protect you against your heart problems. Vitamin E, fantastic for the skin as well. And this is the thing, you will notice your skin change as you get the right oils in place. And also nuts are brilliant for helping balance blood sugar. That's the other thing. So it's another thing to actually help with your blood sugar. And they help you to be satiated as well. Fats help you become satiated. So when people go onto a low-fat diet, they wonder why they end up craving masses of sugary things and then driving themselves nuts and then eating loads and loads of rubbish just before they go to their Weight Watchers meeting the day after. And and it's because they're not having proper fats in their diets and they're not having enough of them. And these fats help you to lose weight. They help you to manage your weight. They help you to manage your hormones. You will reap massive benefits from having these foods in your diet every day. So your mother was always right as well. You need to eat your greens. I hate to admit my mother was right. I actually juice them or put them in a smoothie. But they will definitely help all your brassica family. So all those of you are thinking of erecting your polytunnels and having polytunnel parties now, let's Did I read that right then? I've got really distracted by the fact that someone's having a sauna in the bitching with sauna pants. I don't even know if I want to go there anymore. You're your own way, standing me bitching, you know that. Stop distracting me with things like that, guys. Oh my God. Anyway. What was I saying? Oh yeah, your brassica family. All of your greens, your broccolis, your kales, your cabbages, your Brussels sprouts. I hate sprouts, mind you. Vegetables are the devil. But your chards, your spinaches. Oh, they're shown to have an incredible array of health benefits that are very supportive. You do not have to have body parts taken out or away from you at all. Your leafy greens are essential in the prevention of cancer. If you have not got them in your diet, then why not? In all honesty, why not? And that taste is really important. There, we see certain ones at this time of year that become more darker, they become stronger in their nutrients. Absolutely fantastic. Bitch and saying he loves sprouts, so you can have mine off my Christmas dinner. Because I hate them. Everybody always gives me sprouts. I think it's from my mother. My mother cooked them to death when I was younger. You could push them through your teeth. You didn't have to chew them. You could just push them straight through. My mother was fantastic at baking, but in the sprout department, she really wasn't that good. I'll be honest. Why do parents do that to you? It's almost like torture, what they do sometimes with green vegetables. Steam them or eat them raw. Although, Suela, you probably don't want to eat them raw at the moment, I'll be honest. You need to sort out just being calm. But they're actually shown, there's a more important point here with greens, so in all honesty, they're actually shown, there was an article in the Telegraph actually, that the chemical called sulforaphane seems to counteract a fault with the gene called P10, which is involved in prostate cancer. The gene normally stops cancer from developing, but in certain cells it is missing, and this is when the disease can begin. However, sulforaphane seems to dampen the effect of these cells that are missing P10 and prevent them from triggering cancer growth. Now, this study was conducted by a team at the Institute of Food Research. And this is, another piece of research that is out there showing that food benefits you and you do not have to take, lo and behold, your body parts away from you. Okay. So these leafy greens, rich in antioxidants. So, your peppers are great, but get your greens in. Your greens are absolutely packed with micronutrients. Real powerhouses, your greens. Love your greens. Juice them and then put them in like a fruit juice, or put them in a smoothie, have them in a green smoothie and hide them in some way. But they're known for protecting the cells from your free radical damage, which is all your oxidative stress. And they're rich in your enzymes, and you need those enzymes to break down your food. So then these are known to reduce the risks of breast and uterine cancer. I really am not joking. Diet truly, truly can help. And Sharon Osbourne has been dealt a really poor hand, if I am honest. And doctors are doing this to people, and it is barbaric. Absolutely barbaric. So yes, I hate to say it, but you do need to be eating your greens as part of your diet. So let me just have one quick chat with everybody. Debbie, spinach. Yep, get your spinach in there and become strong. Yellow sweet peas and lentils in my soup. Hey, chew them properly. Right then. Anybody else? Anything? Let me see. Hula hoops are great for material. Hope you're not eating those hula hoops. Okay, guys. Well, it's been great talking to you all. I hope you've enjoyed today. We're going to have Viva Las Vegas. But firstly, I just need to say, I didn't realise how much Shazis looked like Tesla. That was scary. He is Tesla. I have to say, he is the modern day Tesla. So I'm going to hand over to him next. But we are having Viva Las Vegas, one of my favourite tracks. Bye, guys.